is Wrestling Republic. Wrestling Republic. This is Wrestling Republic. Wrestling Republic. This is Wrestling Republic.
What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Saturday, September 21st, otherwise known as Earth, Wind, and Fire Day. The 21st night of September. Who doesn't like that song? I don't know anyone. I'm stoked to be here, though. We've got a wicked original crew hanging with us. Today, we're going to break down SmackDown, talk all about it. We're going to go to Atlanta for a major segment out of the gates at some point. But before we do that, I got to introduce my co-hosts for the day. First and foremost, head of opinions out in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What is up on this fine Saturday, Anthony?
Well, we had SmackDown last night as we were on the road to Bad Blood. And we had a great video package as we're going to get to. And, as we continue on.
Absolutely, 100%. I can't go, though, without introducing next, north of the border, Regina, Canada, Mr. Head of Reviewing himself, Coby Galenzoski. How are you on this Saturday?
Yeah, of course.
What is it, afternoon for you?
Just about afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock right now. Of course, slightly ahead of time compared to you. Behind Eastern as well, but I am here. It is a beautiful week. It's been an enjoyable week. It hasn't been dragging on. Of course, we had a great Monday Night Raw. Now we have SmackDown, which is a mixed bag personally. There was really only one highlight, and of course we are going to get to talk about it in full, but that's for you to introduce, Clark.
Absolutely. Let's talk about right out of the gates this wild segment. I was all fired up about it. Georgia Tech, I'm a huge football fan. I loved it. Roman Reigns is a legend there, an amazing defensive lineman, put up great numbers, a heck of an athlete in the middle of the field. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then all of a sudden, who's that coming down the track? It's the Mean Machine in the red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan. Go Dogs, go Dogs. In Georgia Tech territory. If you're a college football fan like I am, you saw Cody at the national championship last year in his red and black, representing the Dogs. He's technically in enemy territory over there at Georgia Tech, but it's not about that. It's about the city of Atlanta. Georgia Tech is a big part of it. It's in Atlanta. You got to head to Athens to go see the Dogs play. There was one dog, though, in the center of that field, and that was Roman Reigns. Man, was he great on this promo, but Cody was awesome coming back with it, the production, all of it, and I love the idea of it's not yours to take. I'm excited to talk about this one. Obviously, Anthony, you've been following Cody and the Rhodes family forever. He mentioned the Omni Arena in Atlanta was one of the big things he mentioned. The family history in general for the Rhodes when it comes to Atlanta, Georgia. This was just really cool. They played all the right notes. The one thing I do think they missed is I would have loved if there was a mention of the fact that Cody is a Dogs fan, because he's a known Dogs fan. We've seen him wearing Dogs gear at games. But other than that, I thought this was absolutely beautiful. I want to get your thoughts on it as our head of opinions, my friend.
Honestly, the production value that WWE does with these video packages and these promos are better than anybody else that does them. And that was evident last night. It's very rare when you see something in wrestling, when you've been watching it as long as I have and as long as Clark has, for example. We've been watching it for a couple decades. It's very rare when we're caught with something that we have not seen before. And that's what it was last night. Obviously, Roman has history there in Georgia. Cody's from there, which I thought the going back and forth was a nice touch. Cody throwing out, yeah, you represented here, and then you went back to the beach. This is my home. It's not yours. I thought that was great. Bringing up the history, obviously the Omni and other prominent things that were involved with the Rhodes family and the city surrounding area. Cody saying, Roman's a broken man. He lost his tribe. He's no longer a tribal chief. He doesn't have the title anymore. And I loved it that, they were throwing the little hints. And somewhere down the road, we are going to see an unbelievable heel version of Cody, a Homelander version of Cody. I don't think we're going to see it until after he gets done with the final boss, because he's got to do the American Nightmare babyface run with The Rock. But somewhere down the line, we're going to see the Homelander. And it also planted the seeds for maybe Kevin Owens doesn't want to side with them anymore. Maybe Randy doesn't, because they have a lot of history with Roman and a lot of history with the bloodline. They don't want to be associated with that. There were a lot of seeds planted in that one unbelievable segment. The other thing that I'd be failed to mention is I love the music that they used. The I Am the Storm music. I really thought it worked well with the segment, and it delivered. And there's more of an interest now in this enemy and my enemy is my friend alliance against the bloodline.
Absolutely. I agree. And to me, it very much, it captured the moment. And like you said, it teased enough things. It very much felt like the entire show was built around this in some ways. Like this was the true main event, despite the fact that it wasn't wrestled in a ring. This was what last night's SmackDown was really centered around. And I thought it totally delivered. Coby, I got to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, from a review standpoint, is this even a segment you can review? But also, how do you feel about a lot of what Anthony said, as well as the future of the storyline between Rhodes and Reigns? Because a lot of people have talked about how they thought it was over after Mania. I don't know now, with them tagging together, that that's necessarily the case. So give me your thoughts on it.
I mean, like you said, this was the main event. This is what this show was built around. The fact that we had this, the best way to describe it is epic. This was an epic stare down. This was an epic face to face. This is an epic cinematic segment, or whatever you want to call it. But it had everything it needed to be. It was epic. The production value, the widescreen for the excuse me, everything about it was top notch, and that's what you're going to get from the WWE, and that's why this is going to be critically acclaimed. That's why you're seeing people going, yeah, no, the WWE won with the Oscars already, or like they're all having those fun little lines, but it is high quality. It is high. The production value is tremendous. This is what WWE can afford to do because they're the top dog, and they can do this, and they can get people talking without even doing a match. And that's the beauty of it. I don't think they were going to be done, because now they're 1-1. It's common knowledge. If you're 1-1 apiece, you're going to have a third match or whatever. That's going to happen. I don't know when, though. I don't think it happens this year. I don't think it happens next year, because I'm, like we said, The Rock essentially is Cody Rhodes' first real threat. And I'm pretty sure that's WrestleMania. So that's the interesting part. But like you said, I mean, this is the thing. We have a system at WR. It is not built for outside of the ring promos, pre-recorded videos, cinematic segments, however you want to describe it. I think the biggest issue is unless I consider the music as a part of the atmosphere, which I can, but that kind of makes it's a gray area. It doesn't really connect through with the system. It's weird. That's where we are at this point. Is this a future thing we can talk about? Adding to the review system? Who knows? But that's what that is. I mean, this was everything it needed to be. This was the only thing out of SmackDown. And I'm like, okay, that was tremendous. The rest was whatever.
I hear you there. I mean, I thought there was some high points as well, but I agree. The entire episode kind of revolved around this. Now, there's some interesting stuff here. Like you mentioned, it now doesn't feel like the storyline's over. And I don't know if this is going to happen at Bobby Dodd Stadium on Georgia Tech's campus, essentially, in the middle of Atlanta. But Mercedes-Benz Stadium is right there in Atlanta. And if that's where sort of the end of, because Cody finished his story when it came to history, not to be that corny, but he did. Him and Roman's story might not necessarily be over. And I think that's fair to assess at this point, given how electric last night's segment was and how much more excited I think I am now than I would have expected to be about the prospect of Cody tagging with Roman Reigns. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I don't know if WWE has ran yet. It's giant. It's basically the new Georgia Dome. That would be pretty dang cool to see 80,000 fans. You got to do it on a Saturday so that the Chick-fil-A's are open. But still, I'm just saying, it would be a fun move to have that match at a Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I think it could fill that stadium very much a la Goldberg Hogan, but with higher quality wrestling. And maybe that's just me, but it's not a horrible idea. We've got a bunch of comments here also. DCX Warlord over on Twitch said if they make Vinci a jobber, everyone will riot. I do agree, and we are going to get to that segment next, I assure you. Bobby Petito said, hello, guys. Jesse Hyde asked why Zilla Fatu left GCW to join the Bloodline, and now WWE and TKO want the Bloodline to be... Honestly, like over half the current Bloodline is from Tonga. So I don't know about that one, my friend. But I guess I get where you're coming from to an extent. Bobby Petito added, I hope Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns can work together at Bad Blood in the tag team match. I think they will for that one. I don't think the turn for sure happens. Coby just added over here in the private chat for me. WrestleMania 27 was at Mercedes-Benz, but still haven't been back there in a long time. It's basically the Georgia Dome. And, it would make a lot of sense given both ties to the city. I don't know if that's a Mania or a different event in the future, but it just, I'm connecting dots in my brain here at some point. Let's move on though. Speaking of Vinci, because the people are clamoring, let me make sure I move the scroll down. Perfect. Got it. Let's talk about Giovanni Vinci for a second here, because I didn't expect to be actually intrigued by him not being a part of Imperium, but I kind of am. And I don't know what the plan is, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I would love to see something. Anthony, do you have a semblance of direction for Giovanni Vinci to drive us into the future?
No, and that's the best part, because I don't know where they're going with it. And that's when you've been watching it as long as I have, you pretty much have an idea where they're going. I don't. And that's the best part about this, because they're doing something completely different. What they normally do is they show a video package hyping somebody's re-debut or debut in the first place, and they come in and they squash the guy they faced. That's not what happened last week. Last week, he jobbed out like that. This week, jobbed after the same guy again, but not as quickly. Are they building two guys at the same time? That's what it looks like to me. You're building a rivalry with two guys, as opposed to just bringing him in and having him beat somebody. And they're doing something different. Apollo needs it. Apollo has not had the best WWE run. Vinci has not exactly had the best run as a solo star. It's not the first time he's been kicked out of Imperium. He was in NXT. Well, he didn't move up with them when they moved up. So they're doing something different. I'm not opposed to it. I want to see where it goes. I know people are going, oh, they had him lose twice. Calm down. It's early. Let's see how it plays out. Stop hitting the panic button every time someone takes a loss. Relax. Let's see where it goes. If in a month it's still as bad as this is, okay, then you're justified to complain. But it's been 2 episodes. Calm down.
I do agree. I think you made a great point there about like it's different, because they did hype him up and almost tease like they were going to do the traditional. He's going to come in and beat some people up. And that hasn't been the case, but there's still like hype around him in this weird way where like you're intrigued by what's going on.
That hype would not be there if he won the first match.
It's a little bit like, you're starting to like, it's making me ask questions, which I enjoy. That's the best way I think I could quantify it. Shot at it as a bald man. I was happy to see a bald man win, and sad a bald man.
Do those cancel each other out, Shad? Or
That is hilarious.
How does that work?
I believe that's called a bald man wash, which doesn't
Or-
usually require shampoo. Either way, Bobby Petito said, "Hey, Shad," but you can just soap up there. As a bald guy, I can say that. Hey, bald on bald crime is absolutely fair. That's fair game. You know, I've been losing it since my mid-20s. It's not great. Nobody loves that. And it's very obvious. But let's actually, just while we're rolling along, let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about this women's tag match, tornado tag. You get the baby faces going over, Cobe. And I mean, I don't know. Double pin. Obviously, it took 2 to pin Nia Jax, but that was not what I'm a bit of a gambler, not on WWE, obviously. But if I was gambling, probably would have taken the loss on this one. That's all I'm saying. Coby, what were your thoughts on it? And how do you think it affects not only the title picture as far as the top of the women's tag division, the women's division, but does it affect the women's tag division at all? Or is this irrelevant to that? Because you don't see a ton of women's tag matches with this much star power in them that often. And I thought that should have been a bigger deal on a SmackDown like this.
Well, I mean, regarding the tag division, I do think it doesn't. I mean, I would say I don't think we're seeing a Bayley Naomi versus Bianca and Jade match anytime soon. If they're not gonna have Damage Control where Io and Kairi be the ones to dethrone Jade and Bianca, the only other team that I could see doing it is Nia and Tiffany, but they lost here, of course. I mean, I don't think we should be. That's something to think about at this point. There's kind of the direction. I think it was the predictable result. It was the logical result because we saw the stipulation they attached. If Naomi or Bayley win the match, they're going to go to Bad Blood to face Nia Jax. Then you had the heels adding, oh, well, if we beat either of you, you have to leave SmackDown. Then there was the whole, did they say permanent? Was it permanently? Was it forever? I mean, forever and permanent aren't things that exist in wrestling. They were, if one of them lost, they would have ended up on SmackDown in a few years. Regardless, they're not gonna have that much continuity, and they don't need. But I think that was the thing: is adding that stipulation made it so predictable that a face was gonna win. I do like the result because now it's like, okay, well, now we have a reason to care about next week because now we can sit here and say, well, there's two things to think about. We had Nia Jax threatening Tiffany Stratton, saying, well, if you lose, maybe you should leave too. And that was the big thing. Obviously, that wasn't attached to the stipulation, but that was a heel threatening a heel. That was a part of their story together. Now we have Bayley and Naomi building tension between each other. Naomi wanting to have an opportunity, wanting to get back to the top because she hasn't had a big title shot since. Well, the only was the triple threat match with Bayley and Tiffany.
Right.
Like she really hasn't had that one-on-one opportunity, and that there's two dynamics between Bayley and Naomi that now, if you're a Bayley fan or if you're a Naomi fan, you want to see either them win next week when they face off to wrestle to get to Bad Blood. There's good. They built towards that. That's nice. There's a lot of progression, but the match was just not there. There were some nice stuffs, but what I saw, there were some timing issues. But I mean, I enjoyed the Samoan drop and Blockbuster. That looked great from Nia and Tiffany. There were great things. I mean, other than that, it was a fine match.
Well, and
maybe wasn't as good as it could have been.
To your point earlier, for me, that's where I was confused. I was like, oh, this seems like the logical end of the storyline with like they got to leave SmackDown. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Then this is how Tiffany ends up getting under Nia's skin, right? Like, and starting to chase the belt herself. Like, this could be the time, but there wasn't quite enough build. So to your point, the more I'm thinking about it, like, it is logical that if you're going to have them win, have them both make the pin. And now it's even more, right? Like it doesn't get for advancing the current storyline, it makes sense. I just thought it was a chance to sort of wrap it up in a bow and save some of that for later. Cause like you said, there's almost no doubt they're coming. Somebody was coming, finding a way back to SmackDown. It wasn't permanent, right? Like that doesn't exist. And I like what you said there. We've got a bunch of comments as well here. Bobby Petito added, I'm interested to see who wins between Bailey and Naomi.
Exactly.
I am
That's
too.
the point of what was done last night.
We've got LaShawn T. Gibson 5 with Hey over on Instagram. What's going on? And then DC Warlord, I love the Vinci love here, said the referee that cost Vinci 2 weeks ago should be fired. That's classic. And then Jesse Hyde added, WWE is building Damage Control to be a Stardom style Queen's Quest stable now. The Queen's Quest is somehow disbanded of the formation of HATE because of Tom Nakano. I mean, that's a deep cut there, my friend. It's possible. You never know.
I mean, that's the thing. They're building Damage Control up. They got over as faces. You put Io in the ring, she's over. Her ability gets her over. Kyrie's better as a face, and she's getting over as a face. Both of them are in good spots, and they seem to be the next threat for Jade and Bianca. But
Yeah.
I don't. If it's not them who dethrone the current champions, the only other team that I could see are Nia and Tiffany. Because if I go back to what I said a few weeks ago, the challenge was getting these belts off of Jade and Bianca, and now that's the challenge again because they put the belts back on them.
Well, and to further your point, Coby, like if you really think about it, we've talked about how the Money in the Bank briefcase has been a difficult thing to navigate lately because we've seen about everything. I like the idea of them being friends. Makes it so she can sit on the briefcase without it being annoying. Like as a vehicle to that from a narrative perspective.
They're a power duo.
There's no reason to mess that up now. I definitely think. Let's move on though to our last subject, and then we'll talk some more SmackDown after that as well. But KO and the Street Profits against the Bloodline. This one is pretty interesting here because KO seemed to be a little disappointed in Cody Rhodes for his pairing with Roman Reigns. And then he ends up in this match. We end up with a no contest. I personally thought it was just a way to get the Bloodline in the main event, but I also didn't hate the match itself. It was entertaining. Anthony, can you make sense of this one for me?
No, it was. It was absolutely to keep the Bloodline in the main event. That is the main attraction for SmackDown. It's the Bloodline. It's Cody. It's Roman. That's what's keeping SmackDown afloat. There's their top story. Just like Raw's top story is mostly Drew and Punk at the moment. That's your top stories going into Bad Blood. The KO, will he or won't he turn, is actually smart because now you don't know. You don't know if he's going to turn. You don't know if he's going to resign behind the scenes. That's the other part of it, unofficially. Is Cody going to turn? Because Cody certainly had heel tendencies in that promo with Roman. Personally, I don't, like I said earlier, I don't think he's turning until after the Rock thing ends, because I think Rock's going to do the final boss run, and that's what you want. You don't want Homelander Cody against People's Champ Rock. You don't want that. You want final boss against American Nightmare Cody. That's what you want. But there's the intrigue there. The great part about the Bloodline story, when everything is said and done, when this is all done, when it's actually done, when we go back and look how much was built off of this one single story over the length of it, it may end up being the greatest wrestling story that's ever been told because of how much profit they got off of this thing, not just financially, but storytelling wise, because so much can be contributed to that. Obviously Survivor Series, the thought was always, oh, they're going to go Bloodline against OG Bloodline. At this point now, I think it's going to be a makeshift team. I don't think it's going to be OG Bloodline, at least not the full group. Part of me's thinking they may drag that out till next year. If this thing goes as long as it possibly could, it may go until next Survivor Series when we get the two bloodlines. I don't know. But again, this is to continue the story. It's to continue the momentum. You didn't expect much from the match itself. It was a decent little match, but it was not something where it's like, oh my God, that's must see. The thing that was must see is what we started with, which was the Cody Roman meet in the middle of a football field. That was the must see moment of the show. You're on mute.
I completely agree. My bad. I completely agree that it was the part of the show that you had to tune into. And so I think it hurt this match in some ways. Shad saying that he thinks KO needs to turn heel. I think we're about to see quite a bit of a shakeup like that. Bobby wants to see more of Ricky on WWE TV. I mean, I thought Ricky was hilarious. I can't lie. Like that, the tease on it, it was just too funny. But at the same time, to your point, and then even Shad's point, I think KO turning heel well before Cody does anything Homelander related, given the prospect of Final Boss Rock versus People's Champ Rock, which can always go either way, but you don't know. Because, by the way, that the worst case scenario in that situation that you presented there, Ant, is if they did go Homelander Cody versus People's Champ Rock, and the fans cheer Homelander Cody. That's worst case.
I don't see that happening, though.
I mean, it's possible. It really, in today's day and age, you definitely never know. 15 Keys over on Instagram added that Cody's definitely going to be on the War Games team. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that for sure. Coby, obviously got to ask you about the same thing. With a no contest, got to be interesting on the reviewing scale there. So I'm going to ask you about that first, but secondarily, your thoughts on the Bloodline, Cody, all of this as a whole, and the amount of potential turns we have with KO, Cody in the wings. You never know with Roman Rock, all of that stuff that we've just discussed.
I mean, that's the thing is I agree. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing how Triple H progresses his storylines. And I'm referring to it strictly for the analogy reasoning of it being a snail. Think about it. It has been, I want to say, 8 weeks since SummerSlam, and we finally got Finn Balor to say, I'm the reason why Dominic pursued Liv. And that's a completely side note, but that proves this point. We have no idea where Paul Heyman is. We have no idea where Jimmy Uso is. And I don't expect any of that before Survivor Series. You know why? Because there's 2 tag teams. There's DIY and there's the Street Profits. And for them to be cast away when they're in this feud, when they're in a feud with the Bloodline, it would, I don't want to say it would leave a sour taste in my mouth, but it wouldn't make too much sense because Bloodline have enemies. And to go, we're just going to build this around, Roman's family versus the Bloodline. No, the Bloodline has 7 enemies. That's Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, the Profits, and DIY. They have enemies, and that's the point. Whether or not it's the Street Profits versus or the DIY in War Games is another story. But I'm pretty sure they're in it. I'm pretty sure it's Roman. I'm pretty sure it's Cody. And I think the story is Kevin Owens going to join him. If I'm the one with the thing is if I'm going back to this match, I liked one thing, and it's the consistency around the booking of Jacob Fatu. Because Jacob Fatu is viewed as the difference maker. He's the Roman Reigns takes out the Bloodline. Jacob's not there. When Jacob shows up, Roman Reigns is being put down in the ground. When Jacob Fatu is that ace in Solo's Solo's hand. He is the guy that is going to be the difference maker, and that's what this match was built around. Every time the faces tried to get momentum, Fatu ends it. Fatu's the reason they get control of the match. They did well with that. Psychologically, that was tremendous. But I just I don't know. I don't know what the finish was, because the finish was is Tama broke up the pin twice in the span of 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Or not Tama, Tonga Loa. And then it was like, okay, well, the ref rang the bell, and then they're just gonna brawl, and DIY showed up. I mean, that's the thing. But like the War Games is gonna be interesting. If I have the book, I think it might be Roman and KO at Crown Jewel, for them to finally say, okay, let's get their respect into each other. Because I mean, if I'm going back to what Heyman said, excuse me, Heyman said Roman respects you, and that's, I think, the thing that Roman has to sell Kevin Owens on for this war.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack here, Cobe.
I would. The other thing I would have said, just quickly, is I would not be shocked if Cody Rhodes goes to Roman Reigns for this War Games and goes, look at what the Street Profits and DIY did in August. They tore the house down. They had one of the best tag matches of the year on SmackDown to face the Bloodline. These are two teams who want to be here, who want to fight this battle against the Bloodline. Tell us that story, and if it brings us Street Profits versus DIY 2, where the winner joins the team for War Games, that's a fun little part for the storyline. There's a lot of things they can do,
So,
but
Coby,
I don't think it's OG Bloodline.
there's a lot to
I think it'd
unpack
be a
here.
mistake if you do OG Bloodline.
And I think you said a lot of things in there that I really liked. And I totally hate to do this to you. I don't want to drop an anvil on you. And I really don't want to mess up what you just said. But I got to say this. I will throw up in my mouth if it's DIY and the Street Profits versus the Bloodline at War Games. That is not good enough right now.
No, it wouldn't. It would be
if it's 4-on-4.
It'd probably be Cody, Roman, Kevin, and then one of the teams. But if Rhodes goes, these two, I want these two to face off for the right to join our team. That kind of creates tension between the Profits and DIY.
Well, and it's a little like boss
we have to build the right team. We have to build the right team against this Bloodline, because we need. If it's a 5-on-5, because they like 5-on-5s, the Bloodline need a fifth, and they need a tag.
This is where,
unless it's going to be Cody, Roman, Randy, and
like, I would legitimately rather it be like, could Jay be involved, maybe, or like Mr. Sam Zayn, his involvement would be ideal in my eyes. I don't know. There's a lot here when it comes to the Survivor Series part of it. It almost scares me, because I love the work that the Profits have put in, and I love that DIYs look good too. I think it's helping build the tag division, but at the same time, just the involvement of outside characters, like at this point in my eyes, Cody Rhodes is in the storyline because his story overlapped with the Bloodline story, right? So by the nature of that, at this stage, he's still involved in this because he's played such a role, right? Kevin Owens too, as many times as he challenged Roman Reigns along the way, as much as he and Sami Zayn stood tall over the Usos at WrestleMania 39. I remember because we were there. Right? Like those names make sense. I love the Profits. I don't mind them being involved in some way with the week-to-week stuff as far as the Bloodline's concerned. But the main story is still larger than that. That's the only, I'm really nitpicking to get there, because I really do truly enjoy this storyline as a whole. And I love, a lot of people have been critical of Solo taking over as tribal chief. It was teased long before it happened. the debuts of
Roman
Tamatonga.
said it was going to happen.
Right, Tamatonga,
Roman
Tongaloa.
said you're the next in line.
Yes.
Like that. It shows how long and how well put together this entire storyline is.
It
Is
is.
Roman said it last year. When I lose, you're next in line. You're the
And
next
then
tribal chief.
You've got
And that's what's happened. And if we view what Jimmy said to Jay, the poison of becoming tribal chief is what I didn't want to happen to you. It very much happened to Sikoa. Sikoa rebuilt the bloodline because he became tribal chief.
But then,
He
like
became tribal
the
chief because
difference
Roman
maker
said
Fatu makes it. I mean, it's beautiful. I can't wait to see more from it, Anthony. I'm gonna ask you too. Just when it comes to this entire storyline, end game wise, I think there's quite a bit of time. If you were gonna put a number on it, though, how long do you think this thing lasts? Do you think it lasts through 41, 42, 43? Are we looking at 44?
I think 42 is the earliest this ends. I think 42 is legitimately the earliest. Yes, WrestleMania wise, I think this is the earliest it ends.
That's what I'm 42.
I don't think the Street Profits DIY thing. I like both teams, but that's not a survivor. That's not for this level. I honestly think, and really, realistically, two teams are going to fight one another for the privilege to get in the ring with Jacob Fatu in a cage. Yeah, that's the intelligent move to make. But realistically, I think since it's probably not going to be OG Bloodline because they are going to drag this out, and probably OG is going to be the following Survivor Series War Games. I think the logical is it's going to be Roman, it's going to be Cody, it's going to be a reluctant KO, a reluctant Randy, and probably Jimmy will be the fifth if they do a fifth. I think it's Jimmy.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Bobby Petito likes that idea as well. Jimmy does make sense. I think it'd be really interesting if you got Jimmy on early enough because we have some time where you can kind of even almost have him recruiting Jay and Jay saying no. I would love that.
I think Jay and Sammy will say no until the Bloodline eventually starts invading Raw and starts getting them, because we've seen them. They've invaded NXT. They're going to invade Raw. They were on the poster for the January Netflix thing. Everything is going to heat up. Everything is probably going to change. What we're saying now, come January, because we have no idea what they have in store on the road to WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think that is an outstanding point, Anthony. Like, it's gonna get ugly, especially with the Netflix thing. And I think an invasion type deal, we've seen some NWO references already in the comments here, and it makes sense. I do not mind the Bloodline sticking their nose, for lack of a better way to put it, in Jay's business, in Jimmy's business, in all of the people tied in this Bloodline storyline spiderweb.
The smart move is, with Paul not there, Paul could be the silent recruiter to bring the Bloodline back, the OG Bloodline back together to take out the unstoppable threat of the Savage line.
We just talked about how the Roman and Cody at Georgia Tech segment stole the show tonight. The segment backstage of Paul Heyman reuniting that juggernaut of a team to go against a properly built fellow juggernaut is absolute professional wrestling gold.
And I think the smart move is, don't do it directly. What you'll see is, you'll see a segment where Liv or somebody's talking backstage, and all you see is Sammy talking to somebody, but you can't see the person. That's the type of stuff you're going to do towards the build-up. Maybe it's
somehow
maybe at some point
the ponytail, so
maybe
it turns around.
Maybe at some point you see a flash and it's a phone, and you can see the red phone, and you know it's Paul. Like, it just little things. That's the stuff they're going to do.
Well, and that smile, like when he does like the almost sadistic smile where he's like, I got the band back together, like the classic manager. We got the reunion tour now, so I can make money again.
It's the little things. Like when Roman came out last week, it was a perfect thing, as somebody pointed out, and I didn't notice it at the time. When he came out, he looked to the left because Paul was always on his left, and Paul was not there. Those are the little things that add up to make this the most compelling story that there's ever been told.
It's a great call, and I couldn't agree more. It was a bloodline-centric SmackDown, but it made sense at the end of the day. That seriously, though, does bring us to the end of the show here on this Saturday. Everybody have an excellent Saturday. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. That's noon Pacific, 3 over on the East Coast, 8 in the UK, 9 a.m. Hawaii, but also early morning, Progress Wrestling will be providing a little alternative commentary. Me and the Cobster, check it out. It's going to be a blast. On behalf of me, Clark Taylor, Coby, Anthony, Ricciardi, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy yourselves. Talk to everybody soon.